Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me, and I'm going to start working through this presentation. I have put a comment into the chat. If you do have any questions, please put them into the chat, and I will aim to answer those at the end. Alternatively, at the end of the presentation, there is a list of email addresses at the school who you can contact for any clarification on any of the topics that I go through. And so, you can either contact us after the presentation or try to ask a question through the chat. Finally, this is being recorded and we will put this and upload this onto the website, and then we'll let Year 11 parents know when it is up there. So tonight, this presentation is going to look at the time now between the mock exams that start next week for Year 11s and running right the way through to the GCSEs in the summer. On the screen at the moment, you can see a snapshot that is taken from our website. And on the website, it does have the different documents that I'm going to refer to as we go through this presentation. So starting from next week, we have mock exams, mainly in English, maths and science. There are product design exams that are going to be taking place on Thursday, and that is because in November, when we had the main set of mock exams for all subjects, product design was still working on their controlled assessments, so they weren't actually ready for an exam. So the product design students will have their exam on Thursday. And the other slight difference to everybody else is that the acting students on Thursday are going to take their maths paper in the morning. We will let them know tomorrow, and so they'll take their maths paper 2 on Thursday morning. That's not on the timetable. What that does is it opens up a lesson for them on Thursday afternoon, and that lesson is going to be part of their presentation towards one of their assessments towards their portfolio. So in the lesson tomorrow, I will get around to the acting students and I will tell them then. Apart from that, it's basically English, maths and science, second set of mock exams, because they are the core subjects. So in terms of the actual mock exam week, it is a very pressured week for the students, where they will be doing everything in exam conditions. It will be the whole cohort for each exam. And when you get to see the actual GCSE exam timetable, this is a more pressured timetable, because every single student has got at least 2 exams on every day. So what we are going to do is, through this exam period, we're going to allow students to finish and go home on Monday after they finish their biology exam, Tuesday after their maths exam, unless they are economics, and Wednesday after their English language, and then the same will happen on Friday after they finish their physics papers. On Thursday, the Year 11 students, unless they are in product design or acting, will be able to come in for 11 o'clock. And what that will allow them to do is it will allow them to actually finish and then go home and revise and prepare for the next papers, and hopefully reduce some of that pressure that they will feel through next week. There is on the screen, you can see it says Year 11 finish except invited students. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, certain students who the English, maths or science want to actually provide lessons for and preparation for towards these mock exams, they will be invited in, and we will finalise those students and let them know through this week. Once the mock exams finish, then we have some internally run assessments, and again, you can find all of these on the website, and it's on the link on the front of the presentation. So once we've uploaded the presentation, you'll be able to get to the right part of the website using that link. These assessments, it doesn't include subjects that are running internal end of topic assessments or just practice assessments that run through to just help and support them in finding out where their students are towards the final exams. This list are the subjects such as MFL, French and Spanish, acting and art, where these assessments do count towards their final portfolio or their final qualification or their final GCSE grade. So the ones that have been grayed out at the top have already gone through and have already happened. And so when we've got the mock exams next week, and then after that, MFL will have some mock speaking exams, and then towards the end of this term, they'll have their actual speaking exams. So they have been scheduled so that the students have the experience of the MFL speaking exam with enough time for the teacher to then support them to make their improvements before their final speaking exam. So that will be in French and Spanish. Every student will be given a specific time where they then leave their lesson, go to a practice room, they will get their topic, they get a certain amount of time to prepare, then they have the actual speaking assessment. The speaking assessment will be with their teacher. The acting practical exam, again, so that will be where students in their groups they'll prepare for it in the lessons, and then they will get a time slot given to them, and that is in April. And then art have 2 full days where they will be off timetable, and they will complete their exam piece. They will be preparing for that exam piece now in the lessons, and the structure is the same as the mock exam, which has just happened. So all of those are internally run and internally scheduled assessments, but they do count towards the final qualification. And then we have the GCSE exams that begin on Monday, the 15th of May. For year 11, however, the first exam is actually on Tuesday, the 16th. So for year 11, so combined science biology on the Tuesday morning is the first exam paper. The last exam is on Wednesday, the 21st of June. All the morning exams start at 9 AM, and as we start at 8:30, so we will have the students will come in at their normal time and will congregate where they have an exam. They will congregate, they will then be registered and put into the right exam order, where they then go into the exam hall. That is at 9 AM for the morning exams, and it is at 1 PM for the afternoon exams. The exam timetable, the full one of these, is on the school website. Now, the one on the school website has every single exam. Mrs. Howell, our exams officer, will distribute individual timetables to each student, and that will be after the mock exams. And on the individual timetable, it will only have the exams that each student is taking. And it's really important there's a couple of things. It will have the name that's going to appear on the GCSE certificates. So, we have a legal name and preferred names, and on the GCSE certificates, it's actually the legal name that is shown. So we will ask students to check the name on that timetable, because that's the one that will be on the certificates. And if they want to have that changed, then we will need to process that and get that information to the exam boards. And then the other thing that's really important is to check the date and the time. And every single year there is somebody that turns up at the wrong time for an exam. They get the morning mixed up with the afternoon, or they come one day either side of the actual exam. It's really important that those days and those times are checked and double checked, and that the student and yourselves know exactly when the exams are, not just for the preparation, but to make sure that on those days students are turning up in plenty of time so that they reduce any pressure. If you're running late, then it just builds pressure on what is actually a very pressured situation anyway. And if all of a sudden you realise that you've got the wrong time, or you get a phone call from us saying your exam has started and you're not there, then again that really does actually add pressure, and it does mean that you're not as likely, or the student isn't as likely to do their best in that exam. You will notice on the website there is a thing about contingency days. Now, these days are actually set by the exam boards, and they are where they have put by days where nothing is actually timetabled at the moment, and if something happens nationally or even locally that leads to significant disruption, where a particular exam has to be halted or stopped, then they can reschedule that exam. The last contingency day is on the 28th of June. So even though the last timetabled exam is Wednesday, the 21st of June, students need to be available until that last contingency day in case, or plan to be available in case something happens during the exam period, which means that an exam has to be rescheduled. If it's going to be rescheduled, it is likely to be rescheduled for that day, and that is the day that the exam boards put by. In terms of students officially and legally leaving school, that is always the last Friday in June. So, the 28th of June will happen before that, and students need to be at this point available for that day just in case. The exams themselves are run under the umbrella of an organisation called JCQ. So JCQ set the regulations, and we will provide assemblies and information for students, and sometimes this will actually sound like we are just warning students about what can happen if things go wrong. And I think that that is deliberate, and it is something that we do have to do under the guidance of JCQ, because the way that exams are run, to ensure that they are run fairly across the country, all schools who are classed as centres have to run the exams to these regulations. So if you do think actually this does sound as if you are just warning students and just and it sounds a bit negative, I do apologise, but there isn't anything that we can do, because we do just have to be very functional with this and just say this is how exams are run. Anything that doesn't actually follow those JCQs, and that can be deliberate or accidental, is classed as malpractice. And that word malpractice sounds like a horrible word, but it just means something's happened that doesn't actually match those exam rules. And if it is an accident, it means we still have to deal with it. We still have to sometimes report it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's somebody trying to cheat or somebody's trying to get an unfair advantage, and it doesn't necessarily mean that something negative is going to happen if there is a malpractice involved. It could be anything. It could be something as simple as the foundation paper is handed out rather than a higher tier paper. And and in these instances, as long as the students are following the rules, then what will happen is the exam boards try to make it as fair as they can for the student and to produce special consideration for students. The other thing that, as parents you might get, because of course, the students are the ones that are at the, they get these instructions, they get these regulations first of all, and then you get the second-hand version of them, and then it can sound quite negative, and that, that word malpractice sounds quite negative. The other thing is things that can be classed as an incident. So JCQ have updated their regulations, and they have advised that invigilators add more than they used to in terms of what they record on an incident log. So anything like going to the toilet, we now have to log as an incident. So it sounds, again, quite negative, but it's just a very general word. If a student picks up on this and feels a bit worried that I just went to the toilet and they logged it as an incident, that is because that is what we have to do under the new regulations. And the reasons for it is anything that is just slightly out of the ordinary, we have to, if we log it, then we have that record of the support that was given, how that student was supervised, etc. Just in case there is anything that happens where there's, if there's any complaints or anything comes to light after the exams, we have that log of, this is exactly what happened, these are the times, this is what we did, and then everything was done in accordance with JCQ regulations. So what we are going to do from the mock exams, we run the mock exams in the same way that we run the real exams, so that the students are totally and fully aware of it. So they will see the warnings to candidates, and you can see on that some of the rules that actually are on the signs that are up there. And then there is that symbol about what can happen in terms of disqualification. We will inform the students, we'll run it through with the mock exams, we run through exactly the same regulations, so that by the time we get through to the GCSEs and the real exams, students know exactly what those regulations are, and there's less chance that they're going to actually fall foul of them. The one thing I do want to pick up is that now any mobile phones, we've known about for quite a while about not being allowed to be in exams, but now JCQ, because there's so many watches now, even with analog faces, that are internet are able to connect to the internet, students aren't allowed to have watches in the exam hall. With that, it actually also means they cannot have watches or mobile phones turned off in a blazer pocket or in a pocket, even if they're not using it. And if a invigilator sees it, then the invigilator has to record it as an incident, and we have to inform the exam board, and the exam board will then investigate and make a decision about what happens. So in terms of the exam setup, this, the mock exams, as well as being able to show exactly where the students are in terms of the English, math and science, it's going to give them that practice at what is expected in terms of the regulations. We'll have examiners who examiners, invigilators, in the same way that we'll have invigilators in the summer. And the exam hall will be set up exactly how it will be in the summer. The access arrangements will also be exactly the same as they are in the summer, so that all the students have had a proper practice at those situations. In terms of study leave, so the students will be in school following their normal timetables. But what we will do is we will, in the same way that we've made concessions in terms of students either start time or end times when they have got exams coming up, then we will do the same thing in the summer. So students won't have, it's not going to be a study leave where they finish and they don't come back in, because they end up with, you know, those paper 2 sciences, paper 3 maths, etc., they don't end up with any teaching or structured revision until very, you know, for about 4, 5, 6 weeks, if you're including half term, and that is a long time to go without it, and it does affect their final grades. So we will provide more details as we get closer to the time, but they will, you know, lessons will continue unless students have an exam, and then there will be flexibility put in there for the students through the exams. Now, in terms of after the mock exams, we are going to be starting our in-school preparation. So for all students, so, you know, subjects will do their own subject-specific revision and specific techniques that work well for them. For all set students, what we do is we focus on things that all students can do. So we look at specific lessons in planning, online revision, offline revision techniques, and managing stress. And this will start straight after the mock exams. So in planning, they will either get some paper, you know, hard copies for students who like hard copies to plan sessions, and then there's also a couple of online websites where you can set up a revision timetable, which will go right the way through the exam period. So one of those I've got on here is www.getrevising.co.uk, which is free, and there's a lot of free resources on there. So we will look at planning first of all. Then we have got specific websites that are useful for online revision. GCSEpod.com, all students have a password to that, and they are able to access for all their GCSE subjects a full suite of revision audio pods. So then the actual exam board websites have past paper questions, answer schemes, and examiners' comments, and we'll go through those. We'll also, TASMI is English, Maths and Science use it in particular, and there is the BBC Bite Size. So we will go through those online revision sources. For offline revision sources, because some students, you know, they like with the textbooks or revision guides, so we will look at effective note-taking, which includes flashcards, mind maps and mnemonics, because they are the sorts of techniques that cover a wide range of subjects and all students can do. And I think most students, their default form of revision that's, you know, offline revision is flashcards. In terms of revision and what students should do, basically, you know, we will encourage them to set aims for each session, to break each topic into chunks, to plan it out ahead of time, and then to stick to that plan, to have a way of testing themselves and to have a way to check progress. And this is, as parents, is sometimes where you can actually just help. You can just, you know, after they've done a 20-minute session, just at the end, 5 minutes, just questioning them about some of the content that they've picked up on, or some of the flashcards that they have done. It's very easy for students to take notes, to take large chunks of notes, and then to just copy it all out. What things like flashcards, mind maps, etc. do, and is to actually make it what's called active. So active isn't necessarily getting up and moving around, it's just changing what's there into your own words, into your own pictures, into your own diagrams, into your own questions, and or doing different topics in different parts of the house, and or just different ways of which help that topic, which helps that knowledge stick in the brain and stick in the memory. And so in terms of revision, again, we will highlight to students the importance of active revision rather than just sitting for hours on end reading notes and thinking, right, that's it, that's my revision done. In terms of the actual subjects, all of the subjects have a subject code, and so if you want to get revision guides or anything like that, you can get it through the shop, but the shop is sometimes very slow, the school shop, and Amazon or WH Smith, etc., they're a lot quicker. They often have those revision guides. So things like revision guides will work, but so if you want to purchase any of those, or you want to go onto the exam board websites, which I've put the links onto the presentation, where there you can actually pick up past papers and mark schemes. So the closer they get to exams, students are practicing the past paper questions, because the style of paper is always the same, and very often the language that's used in the answers and then the mark schemes is often the same. And there's also some examiners' comments which show where students picked up marks in past papers. Then they can get that. You can get that on the website, and if you put in the exam board, the topic, the subject, sorry, and the code, then you'll get the right materials. And then you can also on the exam board websites go to the right areas to pick up those exam resources. So really, to summarize, students now, we'll get past the mock exams, and it's going to be planning from the mock exams right the way through to the summer. Things aren't always going to go well. So it's about being organised, being independent, thinking what are the weaker areas, what do I need to revise more of, and planning that over a long period of time, but being able to chunk it up into smaller topics and 20-minute, 30-minute sessions, so that more of what is revised is useful and sticks in the memory better and easier. And it's really important that not only is that revision planned, because some people love to colour code timetables and spend hours doing it, but it's actually carried out. That is the really important thing. And now is the time to perfect which revision technique works best for the student. So every student now should be thinking, this is how I revise, and this is what works for me. And as a parent and a carer, you are going to have to put up with that pressure. So, please try to provide a suitable working environment. Teenagers are always hungry, they're always thirsty. Just sometimes supporting by coming up with cups of tea, with biscuits, with squash, etc., is really important. Sometimes, where the students feel they have got too much on, you can be the person who emails the subject teacher or emails the form tutor, and then we can support that student. Okay, so it's providing that support, that care. If you do have the subject knowledge, that is great, but really, that emotional support, that looking after, and that being that mediator with school is also really important now for the students. So please talk to your sons and daughters about work. Check the homework, check what they're doing, check their the feedback they're getting from teachers, and then challenge us. If you think, actually, I'm not sure, and my child's not sure, and they're finding it hard, then please challenge us and email us. You can email me, sroll@carringtonschool.org. We've got Mr. Lockhart Mrs. Howell is the exams officer, Mrs. Miller is head of year 11. So please feel free to email any of us at all about any of that content. Thank you for listening. If there are any questions, I will answer them in the chat. Apart from that, if you have anything in future, please feel free to email me and contact me at the school.